It's a beautiful scene, Jessica.
Thank you.
Yeah. I presume it's a sunrise. Let's go with that.
Okay.
Yeah,
that works.
a sunrise. Yeah, that looks really nice. Hi, Mike. There you are. Okay, it is 6 o'clock and we can go ahead and start the meeting. So the meeting has been called to order and we'll do a roll call, starting with Mike
Adams here.
and Ray.
Johnson present.
And I am present. Marianne Bias present. Robert.
Sandry present.
Okay, and Debbie.
Robert's present.
All right, thank you. We're all here. That's a good thing. The Pledge of Allegiance, please. Can you roll that, Jessica?
Yeah. No? One moment. Okay. See if it'll- Let's try this again.
Well,
I have a little bit of a,
if you,
there we go. Now. it's-
there we go.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That was a wonderful rendition of that. Thank you very much.
Well,
Really like that. Yes. All right, we move on to item B. The patrol report that will be delivered by our deputy, Sam Perez. Sam,
Good evening.
good evening.
Yeah, I was gonna say it was probably our best month since I've been up here. But we had one incident that occurred actually about 2 weeks ago. I want to kind of put an emphasis on this one because when a crime occurs on the Hill in our district, it's always great that we get notified law enforcement as soon as possible. That way we can start the process. Waiting a week to find me, it's not always a good idea. It's always best to call 911 or the non-emergency line. The reason why I say it is because we had an incident where someone entered a residence and stole a firearm.
Oh.
And waited over approximately a week to report it to me because they were looking for me. Things like that, especially firearms, anything of great value, weapons, it's always the best to dial 911 immediately and report the incident to us. That way we can start looking for it. I can't emphasize more than that. It's like someone steals a firearm or a weapon, always contact us right away, regardless of the time of the day or night. That's basically the thing that happened on the Hill this last period. In terms of traffic, I was getting a lot of concern residents about Sandia Creek and Skyrocket, and they were correct. Initially, when I first started, I was knocking out 6-7 sites in the course of a few hours.
Mhm.
After a few weeks, it died down to 2 or 3. So, like I said, pain retains. So, reminder on the streets, make sure we slow down, make sure we abide by the stop signs and everything. And once again, if there's any concerns out there regarding traffic, feel free to contact me or the district and we'll try to take care of
Great.
it. Any questions from the board?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
2 things. First of all, I've noticed a helicopter today circling, staying in one place, just seeming to be doing surveillance of some kind. And are you aware of that? Or is that a sheriff helicopter or is that someone else?
If it was a sheriff helicopter doing surveillance, I couldn't expand on it.
Okay.
But in terms of, and no one reported the helicopter to law enforcement today.
Edison is in the area.
Well, I'm reporting it to you right now.
Apparently Edison is in the area doing some stuff.
Okay,
Okay, if it's a tan and green helicopter, it's us, it's the sheriff's department.
It was
And,
a red one.
It wasn't us then.
Okay.
Risk typically fire, but you'll probably see me flying over next week. So if
Okay.
you see a tan and green one flying over your area, Robert, it's probably me saying hi.
Okay. Second question I have is any marijuana busts?
Those, I really can't expand on it, but right now I'm dealing with code enforcement. We're trying to take care of all the avenues, but I'm starting to get notifications of possible locations that are being cultivated, and I'll be taking care of that.
great. Great. So we'll probably hear something next month, perhaps?
Yes, ma'am.
Great. Does anybody else have any questions for Officer Perez? Nope. Well, I'm glad that it was a quiet month, and I am very sorry to hear about that incident with the entry with firearm. That sounds pretty scary. But thank you for the report, Officer Perez, and look forward to seeing you next month.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. All right, at this point, public comments. If there's any member of the public that would like to speak and address the board, now is the time. I understand we do have a member of the public here and wanted to find out if this person is interested in addressing the board.
Hello, this is Shauna Jango, and yes, I would like to address the board.
All right, thank you. You have 3 minutes to address any concerns that you may have, and please go ahead.
Thank you so much for allowing me to address the board. I'm sure many of you received my email from today, and I'm deeply hurt that I found out today that in a public record, my name was recorded as Shanna Tango. It's a public document. I don't appreciate it. I don't think it is funny. You know, I sort of get the feeling that a lot of you think that I shouldn't attend the meeting or that I'm sort of butting in where I have no business. But I served on the board of directors of the Duluth Women's Club for 2 years as the treasurer. And during my term, I met a lot of really, really wonderful women and men in the Duluth Riverside area. Many of them are still, you know, my friends, and I care deeply about them. And they, you know, may or may not live over on Sandia Creek. I have heard both sides. I truly have, and I have tried to keep an open mind, and I do absolutely sympathize with them, and I want to help them. In the event that the gate permit is denied or the Sandia Creek Road Committee withdraws their application, I would like to help them. I think that together with all of our communities working hand in hand, we could solve this. I know of a road in Ramona that had a similar problem, and the community came together and they were able to raise enough money to make that road safe. Here's something else that really quickly, as the chairperson of the PRD 20, I'm very, very aware of what the rules are. If you go and look at one of their frequently asked questions, there is an actual question about if a road is unsafe. This is what I know to be true in my district. That if I have a road that's in my zone and it becomes unsafe and I decide not to do anything with it, the county can actually step in and they can make that road safe. That I know for certain. There is no doubt in my mind. That is one of the benefits of a PRD. One of the documents that I provided you is a letter from the County of San Diego director, and he tells that road committee that they should form a PRD. And I have heard over and over and over the false assertion that they could not form a PRD. I would like the record corrected that they indeed could. These property owners decided not to.
Excuse me one second.
President Byers, we're
Yes.
at the allotted time.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, if please stay here. I just wanted to try and clarify just a couple of things. As you know, the Duluth Service District, Community Service District is a part of the Riverside County, and we are not at all engaged in closing the Duluth Road up here in Riverside County. The closing efforts are being done in San Diego County by the residents that had previously had private roads, the private road going through their area. So there's really not much we can do on this end other than being bystanders and ensuring that if a road should ever get closed, that we will be able to get access through it and able to go to Duluth and Riverside County. Other than that, we are basically just bystanders to this effort. So that's really all I can comment on at this point. But thank you for your input. We appreciate it. Okay. We will go on to item D on the agenda for information only, and that is the financial statements and the statement of investment policy. Unless anybody has any questions or need more information on that, we will move on to item E, the consent calendar, which are the minutes of the February 17 regular board meeting, the general fund claims for February, the share special tax claims for February, and the purchase orders, of which there are none. I would like to see a motion for approval.
I have a question
Okay.
on general, let's see if I get general claims, general fund claims for February.
Yes.
I have a lot of questions, but I'll reduce them down to,
Hang on 1 second while we all get onto the general funds claims, okay? Just 2 seconds, I'll be right there with you. It is I am almost there. Yes, so general fund and sheriff's claims. Is everybody else on the same page? Okay, go ahead.
general fund and sheriff claims. Yeah, no, what's the item number? It's at 4 or 5 down. Best in Kruger, legal general residency, $10,000. What is the attorney here to explain what that is, or do you know what that is?
The legal general residency?
Yeah, $10,000.
Yes. Jim, and I think at first time around, if Jim can please speak to that, that would be great.
Well, it's the item regarding the residency requirements of a board member, which I believe was in January meeting.
Yep.
And
Yep.
that 40 some days or so, it kind of overlapped a couple of board meetings. So total of the legal charges related to that matter.
Okay.
That's for the Marianne Byers residency thing that you guys voted on? That's what you're basically saying. We didn't need residency explanation prior to that situation. So is that what you're saying, Jim?
That's what I'm saying.
Okay. So is legal counsel here today?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
I think Jim, there may have been some other charges in that as well. I mean, that was at the same time we were doing the bylaws and several other things were going on. I think it just got summarized under one topic, but there was actually a couple of other things happening at that same time.
I will double check the bill, but all but like $400 was all residency stuff, but I will pull it out and double check on that.
Yeah, because you charged for bylaws last time. Would you check on that, Teresa? Because I only bring it up because as council knows, I emailed him several months prior to get an answer to a question. He told me he was not allowed to represent or answer questions specific to any one board member that, and then I see here we spent $10,000 on something that we knew very little about. And that's only one thing that stands out on the last couple or three of these. I've been going over all of these general fund claims for the last few months, but I don't want to hold up the meeting and go over several of them. I was wondering if I might be able to come in and meet with you, Teresa, or somebody that could explain some of these various things. Like this is one thing, so we'll let that one. We know what that one's about. You know, you used to put the director stipends were separate from payroll. Starting last month, you started lumping them in. What's the point of that? Because I tried to subtract them out to find out how much you actually spent on director stipends in December. The only way I could do it was to subtract what the normal payroll is.
The only reason for that is everything that was done, every payroll check that was written on the first of the month was, instead of separating into two lines, it's just one line. I mean, I can go back and do that. Director stipends are between $600 and $1,000 a month. They never go over that. So, but if the board would like, I can separate out the director.
Well, I mean, I just questioned because we've been doing that for 14 years that I've been on the board. I don't know what.
Well, these are also coming directly. The claims used to be done by hand. Now they're coming directly from a computer printout. So that's the reason for that. I mean,
okay,
it's not being manually typed in like people used to do.
Okay.
It's coming directly, but you know, it's not a problem. I could modify it.
Well, no, I just wondered what you explained it. It's a computer thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing.
Just so you know, the stipends, the most you can get any one director is paid a month is 6 meetings. So even if they did 10 meetings, they can only get paid $600.
Right.
So it never has gotten even up to that so far. So just as an aside.
Well, it was when Bianchi was on the board. That's one thing his wife was mad about. He had 12 or 13 meetings. I think Debbie will realize, will remember back in those, she wasn't on the board then, but they had several meetings. Anyway, that's minor.
Paid for them.
Yeah, that's minor. You know, you've been on this thing a long time, Teresa. Do you ever recall paying Wildan $60,000, $70,000, $50,000?
Well,
every month.
I will tell you is, yes, it's quite a bit, but we've never had this size of a FEMA obligation either. This has been the largest FEMA we've ever had. And reason two is a lot of the bills that you're seeing on there are environmental. So those are coming from the environmental agency that bills Dan, and then Dan bills us.
Right, I get
So
it.
what we decided in finance is I'm going to be a little bit more descriptive on the environmental, so you can see like it's coming from the we're being billed from the environmental company, and it's just a pass through. So
Doesn't Michelle, who's doing the environmental work for Wildan?
No,
Oh,
Okay,
it just,
I thought we had somebody on there that worked with Wildan was explaining that, but that's all right. I just get used to the, I had one other question on the GIS mapping project. What is that?
it's tied to the whole system, both here in the office and in the field. And this is the tablet that the guys are carrying now that documents everything they do all day long. And then it comes into, I think Steve talked about it at the last meeting and showed a slide of it. And he's the one who's developing the program for us. So those are one-time charges, probably last 20 years, 10 years, something like that.
What about the, is this his labor or is there equipment involved?
No, that's his labor, his time. He's a programmer. This is, remember the guy that came on Buena Vista that said he could get us one of these systems?
Right.
Those systems are over $100,000. And I don't know what happened. Rex Miller is an actual programmer for Wildan itself. And he told Dave, heck, I could do that for him.
Yeah.
So he put together a meeting, and basically they're letting us use their programmer to program for us. And so we should be able to have a custom system for probably 25,000. That's just what we need instead of something that would run everybody.
Well, what is there going to be a monthly licensing fee?
Yeah, there are some. Yeah, probably.
You know, why, I can't understand why we need to spend 12, 15, 20,000 to keep track of two guys up there cleaning ditches and running around doing odds and ends. I mean, they filled out a time, whatever, they wrote down what they did, rake leaves or whatever, mow grass. And that was it. I mean, if you go back over, this is one of the problems that I have with the district, and I'm having some, I'm comparing it with some other issues I have. And you guys are spending just literally thousands, tens of thousands to do little menial tasks. And I don't get it. I mean, we don't have a big giant staff of 20 people that you need to separate out. I mean, would it ever occur to any of you to go up on the hill and see for yourself what's going on? I'm under the impression that nobody on that in the entire district, except for our labor staff, ever goes up on the hill. So there's cell reception isn't that good. So if they have to go up on top of a mountain to get cell reception, I mean, I don't have cell reception at my house. So if I was working at my house and I had to report something or do something, I'd have to go up on a hill and take time off to go find some place to check in. Does it make any sense to you, Jim?
Yeah, it does. You've heard of GIS, right?
Yeah.
What is that?
Well, it's a basic.
Satellite. It doesn't require cell.
Right. That's totally
That's our
expensive.
way around it.
Yeah.
But I guess, everything was so wonderful in the past.
How much is a satellite phone?
In the district understand it cost them $2 million in FEMA money because they didn't have any documents.
Yeah.
Because they laughed at us and says, what are these little paper time cards? You want us to write you a check for $2 million of federal tax money for this?
That was, what are you talking about? The Sandia Creek that was denied?
16, yeah. And at Sandia Creek and Buena Vista. So
Yeah.
now we have to pay for Buena Vista out of local funds.
Well, I know you're making darn sure that you've got every T crossed and I dotted now, but as far as the Sandia Creek 4305, I still haven't figured out how you were able to refile on a claim that was denied, and then within 22 days, you refiled a new claim.
Neither have
So-
I, and I don't
Yeah,
talk to them about it.
you never appealed. You never appealed it.
What, you can't appeal something that you've just gotten awarded.
You're talking about the $2 million thing that got denied, right? You brought it up, not me.
Right, but the Sandia Creek original and the Buena Vista were denied for lack of proof that we maintained those trains.
Yeah, well, then let me ask you a question. How are you able to refile on the Sandia Creek
Well, maybe
16 days later? Would you explain that?
that wasn't 16 days, it was a year or two
Well,
later.
I'll show you the paperwork. I'd like to have a meeting with you sometime, but I've come by the office several times. You know, Teresa knows I used to come in. Teresa used to be there. I don't know. The guys came in, I guess, 7:30, you know, but I've never seen anybody in the office at those hours, which I usually go by there, or as late as 9 o'clock. So I wanted to make an appointment. I've never seen Jessica or you or Teresa in the office
Mike, you kind
before
of,
9 o'clock.
wait 1 second.
This is almost done in the.
Yeah, we're conducting a meeting here and we're getting a little bit off subject.
Okay. Well,
I
I'm trying to
believe
say,
that-
excuse me, I'm trying to say that I would make an appointment and go in and see him
Then I
personally,
think you
and then we don't have to deal with it now.
Mike-
I absolutely agree with that. That's fine.
Mike,
think
if
you
you're
should-
that unhappy, why don't you just quit?
Well, we have a reason, you know, this isn't our little play toy. We have a responsibility towards the residents
Exactly.
out there.
Each and every one of these items here that you're complaining about have been voted on by the board and approved and has been moved forward.
No, we're talking
And,
about we haven't voted yet on the general claims fund.
No, I had put it forward for a motion and a second that we voted to approve it. And then at that point, you stepped in and said you had questions about it, which is what we've been doing. This was only to be questions about the general fund and sheriff's claim. And then from there on out, it has just moved into the general
Okay.
dissatisfaction with
Yeah,
with,
okay.
particularly Jim Emmons and employees, et cetera.
Well, I can talk to
It's-
Jim separate. Don't worry about it. I apologize.
Pardon?
I said I apologize. I'll talk to Jim. I'll email Jim or something.
Right, and at the same
Move
time.
approval.
Thank you. And a second,
Second,
Robert second.
Robert second, thank you. All in favor indicate so by saying aye, starting with Michael Adams.
Aye.
Okay, Ray,
Johnson, aye.
Byers, aye. Robert,
Sandry, aye.
Debbie,
Robert's eye.
thank you. So all in favor? And we move on to the Board of Directors, which is a nomination to the CSDA Board of Directors. If you check under the item F, you'll find a letter sent to the board by Joe McKenzie. And Jim, if you will go ahead and explain the issue to the board, please.
The CSDA is broken into 5 regional zones, and each region receives a member of the board to represent that zone. We're known as Seat A, being the most southerly zone in the state. Our 4-year CSD Board of Directors member representing just our region, Seat A, is currently Joe McKenzie. She has requested a resolution recommending or concurring with her renomination for a 4-year term. I have met Ms. McKenzie twice. She provided some go-between between us and the lobbyists for CSDA when we first began AB 421. And one other time she contacted us about some training opportunities. So I've had 2 contacts with her. They've been favorable. That's all I know about her. She is in Vista in the Water District down there. And so that's all I can add. She's requested the attached resolution.
Okay. And so we have a motion. Do we have a motion to approve the resolution 2021-01?
So moved.
So moved, and a second.
Roberts, second.
Okay, and all in favor, please so indicate, starting with Mike Adams
Approved.
and Ray Johnson.
Johnson, aye.
Thank you. And Byers, I approve. Mrs.
Sandry,
Alexander,
aye.
thank you. And Ms. Roberts.
Roberts, aye.
All right, thank you. So that has been approved, and we will go ahead and get the resolution signed. So congratulations to Jill McKenzie, and we hope that she wins her continued board member. We move on to the financial matters of the fiscal year budget, the new budget for 21 and 22. And Jim, take it away, please.
So it's going to be that time of year again. Budget's approved every June to be effective in July. These are the traditional resolutions that we pass in March of each year, which set forth essentially the ground rules of the budget process, requiring us to publish notice of our hearings in a newspaper of general circulation. The second resolution, 2103, sets forth the details of the budget itself, the publication of it, and what's known as a written report, since we do levy a benefit assessment each year, which must be accompanied by a written report presented to the public at your June meeting. So now would be the appropriate time to adopt both Resolution 2102 and 2103.
Where do we actually find the budgets? I was just trying to look for that. Is that in as part of?
That comes later. This just sets the ground rules for preparation of those documents.
Gotcha. All right.
And the hearings and the publications for them.
Okay, so
So I move approval of resolution 2021-02 and 2021-03.
gotcha. We have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, please so indicate, starting with Mike Adams.
Adams, aye.
Mr. Johnson,
Johnson, aye.
Byers, aye. Mr. D'Alessandro,
Sandry, aye.
and Mrs. Roberts.
Roberts, aye.
All right, so that has been approved. And we move forward with that. Road reconstruction projects on Sandria Creek and Via Vaquero. These are our big FEMA projects, which we will hear the status report on that from Dave Hunt. Thank you.
Yeah, there's very little change on that. It's going through the environmental process, through the review. And I'll probably have an update in like a month on the status of all the agencies reviewing the project, and then can give you an update at that time. But until I get feedback from them, there's really no update on this right now.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Does anybody have any other questions to the fact that we don't really have any further information on the environmental review at this point? Okay, we move on to item I, the roadway rehabilitation project, which we need to adopt a notice of completion for the 2020 slurry seal project. And Dave, if you can please explain what's needed from us.
All right, I gave you a staff report that kind of describes how they completed the project. I told you last month they completed it, so now we have to file the notice of completion. The main purpose of this is to have the board say, yes, we've accepted this project. This again gets filed with the court system, and then 35 days after it's recorded, we pay them the last 5% retention that we've held back, just in case something, didn't get finished, or we still hold some of his money back. So the project, went out to bid for roughly $30,000. We had $105,000 in change orders. 8,000 was for some additional slurry seal. 15 was for some extra tack coat and repairs of some roadway. And then the rest of it was extra striping that we added so that we could combine Steve's yearly striping with the whole project and get all that in there. So that was, and the prices for that were good prices we got from them on doing that, and the whole project covered, was it the entire district, Steve, for striping, or about 90% of it?
90%.
About 90% of the district. So you guys should have seen all, no matter what street you go down to, pretty much you see all new striping out there. So I combined my project with Steve's and all went well. So with that, everything was done to the satisfaction of my inspector, to my engineer, myself, and Steve. So the project turned out well. With that, I conclude my report.
Great. No, congratulations on that. That seemed like that was a really worthwhile project that really made us quite a difference in our district. So at this point, I'd like to see if we can have a motion that we accept the project and adopt the notice of completion.
So move.
Can I have a motion for that? Pardon?
So move.
Please repeat. You're so moved. In a second, please.
Robert second.
Robert second. Okay, and also in favor of the notice of completion, please so indicate. Start with Mike Adams.
Adams, aye.
And Ray Johnson.
Johnson, aye.
Byers, aye. D'Alessandri.
Sandri, aye.
And Roberts.
Robert's aye.
All right, so that has been adopted and approved. We go to item J, Buena Vista Reconstruction Project. And that involves a recommendation discussion of the 2021 to 2022 capital improvement project. And Dave, if you would please start informing us on these projects.
Okay, before I go into my part, the chairman of the engineering committee would like to do like an introduction. So Debbie, I'll turn
Okay.
it over to you.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Okay, as everybody's aware, over the last 3 months, the engineering committee has been discussing the 21-22 improvement projects. And we did a lot of discussion and review on 3 potential projects. We even extended our last week's meeting to this past Monday because we did request some additional information for our consideration. We really did our homework. I felt really good about it. We really delved into the pros and cons of each of the options, which also included evaluating any impact of non-selected options and work in progress, such as permits or environmental reports and so forth. And as a result, we did conclude on Monday that we wanted to proceed with Buena Vista for this particular project as our recommendation for consideration by the board. And before I turn it back over to Dave Hunt, Ray, did you want to add anything to that? You're good? Okay. All righty, Dave, then I'm going to turn it right back to you then.
All right, thank you, Debbie. So the report I gave
you,
you
Debbie.
kind of outlines some of the where we have areas that need work throughout the whole district. And we came up with 3 projects that came up to around $700,000. That is what the goal was, to come up with a project of that size. So the first option we came up with was to work on the Via Ficaros project. And this is a project that the district has done sections 1, 2, and 3 in the past years before I got here. And they were going to get ready to do section 4A when I got here, but then we had the second set of floods that came out and changed the kind of course of that. So those projects never got done. So 4A, 4B add up to about $670,000. And so that was a project that we said, okay, that was on the books before, so it needs to be discussed. Do we continue with that or move on? The second project we talked about was Buena Vista, which I'm going to talk about a little bit in a few, after I'm done with the other one. So I'll skip to option 3. And option 3 was to spend money through all the districts and come up and, spread the work around, kind of like we did on the slurry seal last year. So we came up with a project in each zone plus the primary roads that came up to about the $700,000 for some grind and overlay work and stuff like that. And some of the streets that really are kind of falling apart in there. And so now I want to go a little more detail on option 2 to Buena Vista. So if Jessica could bring up my slideshow on that, because I always like giving you guys pictures to look at so we can talk about it a little bit better. Okay. This first picture is walking up to where it's washed out. And I kind of wanted to point this out to you. It's a very deep gorge. It's like the next picture will show more of that, but you can see the crack in the street there. And the crack in the street is showing you that the slopes are very unstable out there right now because they're basically vertical. And when we have additional rains, then the slope weakens, and you can see the crack in there kind of means that section is going to fall down in the next big storm we have. It's a potential of more collapsing. So you can go to the next slide. So there you can see how deep it is. It's 25 to 35 feet deep in that area in there. You can see 2 of the pipes that are in there. Those are 60-inch CMP pipes. And they're kind of broken up in pieces. And there's even some sections got washed out and are further downstream. That white pipe you see going across in is the water line that fed the area. The water district actually came out and closed that line down for use. And so there's still water service on both sides, but the water district likes to have loop systems so that if anything happens, they got water supply from 2 separate areas to feed a street. So with this thing closed down right here, it's like having 2 cul-de-sacs for the water. They only get water from one side. So they're kind of antsy about getting this fixed so they can redo that water line as we're redoing our street. Go to the next slide, please. Oh, there you go. So here you can see the 3 pipes, and you can see how the middle one got crushed, and even the one closest to you kind of disappears because it got washed downstream. And it's a very deep gorge, and it just fell apart. And because of the age, you can see the rust that's on the outside of the pipe. There was rust on the inside of the pipe. That's where Jim was talking about. We had no records of even looking at it. And basically FEMA said, you let the thing rust out and therefore we're not taking care of it. And no matter what. So we're doing that. So let's go to the next picture. And just go on to the next one. That's just the water line. So when we're all said and done, this is a picture of the road when it's completed and going across. To the right and left, those are slopes going down, like I say, about 30 feet, 35 feet down till it hits the invert down below. So 2-to-1 slopes. So that whole area in there, it gets excavated out and then compacted back, and fill lifts so they can compact the soil so that it doesn't have any weak spots in it after, after they lay the pipes with all the bedding and stuff like that. You can see little white, it's a curb and gutter on each side of the roadway. And that is to collect the water off the road and take it to the side and take it all the way down so it doesn't erode any of the slope going down. We'll plant the road with plants that will help grab the soil so that the roots can help any erosion during rains and stuff. You go to the last slide. So this is looking straight down. So you can see the extent and how far the slopes go out. And then where the pipes end, there'll be a concrete head wall. That's that white thing that goes across each pipe. And then upstream and downstream of that, you'll see it like a gray area. Those are big rocks in there that help slow the water down so it doesn't cause further erosion in there. So this is a big project. There's a lot of dirt to get hauled in and out, a lot of compaction in there. Before this thing washed out, it was like a forest in there. I mean, and it washed out a lot of the trees and stuff in there. So just kind of gives you an idea, looking straight down at how it will look. So one about these projects, the main purpose is to take water through there. When it's done, you won't even see these pipes. You're paying all this money to put the pipes in to help not wash out the road. You'll see the road on top, and then most people won't even know there's pipes in there that carry the water through. So anyway, I wanted you guys to see what it was. We came up with pros and cons of all the projects, and this one seemed to meet the needs of the engineering committee, and we're hoping that you agree and pick this project to be the next in line to be done next year. With that, I'll turn it back to the board.
Okay. Regarding the Buena Vista project, it looks really good. I would say it's probably something we need to get going on. How will we be able to maintain these pipes that are buried way in there? Is it a different kind of material in there? Is it going to be lined? How does this work now?
Well, we're going to put corrugated metal pipes, brand new ones in there. We're going to fix it so that there's no side erosion by putting concrete head walls upstream and downstream. You seal everything so nothing can get around it. And that helps preventing erosion from the outside getting in and from in the middle. These pipes will last 60 years. And at that time, if we determine that they need some additional help, you can go in and line it at that time. Lining it right now is kind of like a Cadillac version versus what you need to do. So 50 years from now, they can line the project when it's needed to help extend its life even another 50 years. But it doesn't need it right now.
Okay.
And that's typically what people do when they put these in, and they go back later on, and then they'll line them, and that doubles the life again. So it goes on and like that.
Well, okay.
Why did you select, or how did you come to the number 700,000? Why not do 1.4 million in projects this year? We actually have the money for it.
Well, I'll leave that up to Jim. He kind of gave me a budget around 700,000 to work with. And this is what I came up with these projects.
I have a question. If you went forward with the Buena Vista project, what would be at a start date? I mean, and what would be a completion date? And my third part is, aren't we already doing the environmental?
Yes, we're working on the environmental. It's on the same track as the other project. They're geared to be finished up, as I reported back in end of May, middle of June. We can put this project out to bid, have a contractor on board. And when we get environmental clearance in June, we'll be ready to start. Because the environmental, what's going on with the environmental is not really going to change the design at all. The environmental is there to say how much we might owe on off-site mitigation measures, because we're going into a habitat that has things growing in it, and they charge it. And I have that in the budget. I included $70,000 in there from environmental mitigation. And basically what that means is after they're done, the agencies come up and say, okay, we're giving you permission to do that. You're disturbing 1 acre of property. Therefore, you need to contribute $70,000 in environmental costs into their fund they have, where they use in other places, or sometimes you can negotiate and do it in the district somewhere.
And going back to Robert's question, I agree. Why are we doing just one thing? I mean, Buena Vista has to be done. If I couldn't possibly even imagine walking away from a meeting and not picking Buena Vista and doing a slurry seal or some other road repair and then leaving this undone. But at the same time, that should not be the only project. We should get in the game here. We haven't done anything in 3 years except for slurry seal. So now we've got an actual project fixing this road, and I like your idea. It looks good, and I would be for that. I would also be for one of the other two projects, whatever the board decided, or however Jim decided, if he wanted to do extra.
Well, what you got to also understand is we're going to be building Sandia Creek at the same time. That's another $600,000+ project. You will get reimbursed from that, but it may take you a year, 2 years to get reimbursed for it. So, it all depends on how much money you want to spend at one given time. And again, I'll let Jim talk about the $700,000, because that's.
That's it. The 700,000 has been the historical number that the boards in the past have used per year, which is basically cash in, cash out. You collect like 1.9 million in roadway funds every year, and your operating maintenance is 1.1 or something like that, and the balance has historically been about 750,000, and then another 100 for odds and ends that occur. That's a historical number, but it's based on your income stream. So when I was told and looked at what you've been doing year after year after year, that's what we've been using as the standard. This year, we're actually going to, as Dave said, do double that, and with the expectation that those FEMA funds are going to come in, and I'm going to comment on that in a moment. As far as the cash flow for FEMA, because we had a big meeting with them last week regarding that matter. It's really a policy decision on your part as a board. How much you want to spend.
What about the 5.6 million in the bank? Can't we spend any of that?
Sure, you can spend as much as you want.
Historically, we've never had that kind of money in the bank. We've been saving it up as of 4 years ago, when we dedicated $1 million for future possible disasters. And then prior to that, when we've had FEMA disasters, we've went ahead and fixed them and waited to get paid, like Dave says, for a year or 2 or 3. But we still did other work in the district. So I don't see the advantage to not doing the work.
Again, if that's really what you're elected for, okay, is crystal balling, running the business. You make 1.9 million a year, all right, and and you're the money that you have for roadway rehab every year is about 750,000. That's, and I've got it all the way back to 1978 or 9, whatever. Historically, that's been what it is because that's how much money you take in every year. So
Right.
you've gotten some that has been, you've been saving at some point. Some years it was 300 or 400, and that money has accumulated. But there's some other things too that you can't take it to zero because you've got liabilities. The biggest one is the unfunded pension liability, like 1.3 million. So I would advise you go past that. But that's really what is you know, you're the taxpayers. How do you want to run it? You've been running it pretty conservatively. You've got some cash built up. Who's going to spend it? That's up to you guys, because we'll be happy to spend it for you. But maybe you need a meeting on that. I don't know. When I came in here, it looked pretty fiscally prudent to me, maybe too much so, but you're doing a couple million every 3 years in FEMA work. So as you said, Mr. Adams, you got to front that money. And one of these days there's going to be a big storm with no FEMA. And fortunately, you've been lucky for like the last 15, 20 years.
How would we have a big storm with no FEMA? We've already had a big storm with, and we wait on FEMA. We don't fix anything.
Didn't get any FEMA this time because if you recall, Mr. Trump and our governor got into it. It was pure politics. And I'm not sure what pushed that over, but we waited 2.5 months to find out whether those two were going to get it together. I mean, it's as simple and political as that. And that's the world of politics and government. So you can't count on any FEMA money ever. So far, so good. And California's got a lot of clout, but it can happen. And it almost happened this time. And all those dollars we're spending right now hung in the balance for 2.5 months because of those two people.
What I would suggest, if I might suggest something, I think that perhaps the Finance Committee can review our finances again, take a look at it, see, perhaps make a recommendation as to how much we might commit in the next year. $700,000 is a reasonable amount, but I do think it's possible, potentially possible anyway, for us to commit more than that. And if so, there may be a few other projects that we can take on. However, it needs a good review of FEMA, the FEMA money coming in, how long it's going to come in, what we have in the bank, and what each of these areas have, and what our long-term responsibilities are. And I think that we're not prepared to do that at the board meeting right now. And maybe we can do that at the Finance Committee or at the Engineering Committee or at an ad hoc committee. I do think it needs to be taken up elsewhere and brought back to the board.
Right, that might be true, but we pretty much know what it is. But I don't think we should prolong approving Buena Vista based on some future other project that you might want to do if you decide you have enough money. I think we have pretty much discussed the 700,000 that's available. Jim has said that's what we've got. I don't think that we can stall off on Buena Vista any longer. We have the funding for that according to Jim, that's what we normally spend. If we want to do something extra, we've got the Rancho California water waiting. We've got residents out there been waiting for years. I hate to go out and talk to those guys and tell them that we decided we can't really make a move because we're,
Right. If I may suggest then, we know that Mr. Emmons is going to be talking to us about other projects or other funds that where we're at this point in his general manager's report. I think at this point, with this item, the Buena Vista reconstruction project, as far as I can hear, it sounds like the engineering committee is recommending that we move forward with the Buena Vista project. So my suggestion is that we move forward and vote on that at this point. Then we hear from Mr. Emmons on his report for the general manager of the district update. And we can perhaps either go back and leave Jay somewhat open to other projects, or we can take it up next month. Because I do believe that he will be able to enlighten us more on the status of the funds that we have available to us and where they're going and the amount of money that we would be prudent or not prudent to keep in reserve, if we can call it that. So I think at this point, we should go ahead and entertain a motion to approve Buena Vista project as it was outlined. And
I'll make a motion. I'll
Okay.
make a motion to approve that project as outlined by Dave Hunt.
Okay.
And by the engineering committee as option number 2 in the board packet.
okay, so dealing just the Buena Vista at this point, we have a motion, and can I have a second?
Second.
Okay, so all in favor, please so indicate, starting with Mr. Adams,
Adams, aye.
Mr. Johnson,
Johnson, aye.
Byers, aye, Mr. Alessandri,
Sentry, aye.
and Mrs. Roberts.
Robert's eye.
Okay, so we have board approval to go ahead with the Buena Vista reconstruction project, and we will revisit either at this point later in this meeting, or we will consider it next meeting, any of the other projects as we find out from the finance committee, or we feel we have learned enough from Mr. Emmons' project later on in this meeting. So let's move ahead with the traffic safety report from Steve Liebman, please.
Thank you. We have a slideshow for you tonight.
All right.
So we keep moving our speed feedback sign around. It's going out now on Calle Capistrano and Carrancho and El Prado in the coming month. You'll see it on those 3 streets. Again, still trying to just encourage drivers to exercise caution and watch their speeds. We had new guardrail that was installed on Rancho California by the county. They said there's no stopping signs that come along with them will be in the next few weeks. We had an accident you probably heard about out on Carrancho, west of Los Gatos. It was not at the intersection of Los Gatos. It was actually a driver that was speeding that drove over the center line at the curve down about 600 feet so west of Los Gatos. We did install some advisory speed curve signs for that location. This is our safety portion. Wanted to thank our sheriff. I don't know why that's blacked out. He has been enforcing stop signs. He won't admit everything he does for us all the time, but so I wanted to thank him publicly that Sam's doing a great job. And he issued 26 cites in January and 25 more in February. So he's doing a great job keeping those under control. We also added some red curb on Gatillo because the vandals were taking our signs out there. They want to party up on the hill. So next slide shows what it used to look like with the signs. One of those posts had no parking signs. We used to have 2 or 3 posts, but they took the signs, they took the posts. So we painted red curb. We'll see how they do with that.
I have a question on that, Steve.
Yes.
Whatever happened, we had meetings about what to do with that cyclone fence that they had torn down partially up there where you just put the red curb. It looked like it was still hanging there loose. I thought they were going to remove that, or, you know, it's a safety problem. Have you actually been out there personally?
Yes, I have, Mike. The fence was reported to the county. It's theirs to maintain, but I can certainly follow up with them and see what the latest status is.
No, we put that fence up. We put that up at the cul-de-sac there, with the district put that up several years ago. And we were debating whether to repair it about 4 years ago or to just take it down because the cost of repairs, and they just go out and they tear it down, they throw junk over the hill and it blocks their view. So that's not a county
Okay.
fence there.
Okay, then I was misinformed. So I'll follow up on that, Mike.
Thanks.
Okay, so now our maintenance report, ongoing activities. We're continuing to send out letters to residents whose growth has encroached into our street, and we've had really good compliance from all the residents. This has really been nice that they've been so cooperative. We worked with the sheriff on dumping sites. This is an example of one of them. We're working with the Rancho Water District, trying to get some of these street issues where we have some leaks popping up. These are the 4 that we have currently in the process, and all of them are supposed to be kind of resolved in the next 2 weeks or so. We went out over the last month or so and we rechecked 223 drains for any accumulations of weeds or silts and stuff like that. And as soon as this rainy season kind of halts up here, we'll be addressing those. We repurposed one of our trailers that was just storing parts and wasn't really being used, stored in the garage. So now we have it built a nice little ramp for loading and unloading stuff. And we're investigating some new strategies in the upcoming months, potentially permanent patching, doing that in-house versus using contractors, and possible remedial drain repairs if we can do those in-house. And so we'll bring more to that to you in the future meetings as we get more information. And that's my report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
I like seeing that we're repurposing old equipment that can be used again, and I'm happy that we're looking into doing more in-house work. And you know, if that works out or it pans out financially, I think that could be excellent and will help us, you know, do more bangs for the more bang. So that sounds good to me. Does anybody else have any questions for Mr. Liebring? Nope. Oh. Well, thank you very much, Steve. That was a good presentation as always.
Great.
We move on to item L, the committee reports, starting with the engineering committee report, and that would be you, Debbie.
All righty, thank you. Well, as you're all aware, we did meet twice this month on March the 9th and the 15th, and pretty much discussed all those items that were presented this evening by the engineers. And I don't have anything further to add. And Ray, if I missed anything, please speak up. Done? Okay, end of report.
All right. Thank you very much, Debbie. Next up is the Finance Committee report, and that would be Mr. D'Alessandri.
We met yesterday and we discussed the claims for February, and actually the points that we brought up earlier, we discussed those.
Yeah.
and discuss all of them, as a matter of fact. So I was pleased to hear some of that discussion today. I think much of that can be expanded on. Following that meeting, we then had a session, actually I had a session on the signing checks with the Banner Bank and their app. And we went through that, and I think we're going to be able to do that in a very efficient way. And I suggested to Teresa that the first time I do that, I think I'll come to the office and do it there with her. I think that will facilitate it. It's a bit of a complicated process. It requires having an app. It requires going to 2 sites. It requires having 2 passwords and also a confirmatory additional way to get in, a set of numbers that they give you that you have to enter. So it looks like it's pretty secure, and it looks like it will work very well. In addition to that, just so people know, you can look at all of the checks individually, so that it isn't just sign a bunch, but they all come up. And so you can take a look at those, and you can, the way I understand it, is approve one, approve most of them, or not approve one. So, or you can approve all of them. So you have some options about that. You can set one aside and then have a discussion with Teresa about it. So that sort of thing. So I think there's flexibility there. I think it will save the time of having to go to the office. And I think it'll be more efficient, both from the signer's perspective and also from Teresa's perspective, because she's often struggling to get this done within a certain time frame. So that's my report, and happy to answer any questions.
Just from having been through this whole thing in myself, I think we don't have to do the 2 times around with the approval codes. Just the first time, where they're just establishing that you are you. So the first time you have to go through this approval process, it'll be 2 times. And then from there on out, it'll just be the 1 time. So, that will make it that much more efficient. So should be okay.
Question on that. Is that, who's are we talking about? Teresa signing checks or the board members?
Board member.
No, board members only. So it would be basically the same way as we're operating now, and that is Teresa and or Jim can initiate checks, but they have to be approved, or as in the old days, signed by board members only. So all we're doing, instead of physically signing a piece of paper, is we're approving it by using these codes that we get on an app on our phone. And once we have seen the documents and established for ourselves that we approve them, then you put in this code that is on this app, and thereby indicate our approval or signature. So it's the same thing, but it's just done so that nobody has to physically go to an office and sign 50 checks or 20 checks or whatever the case may be.
Can I say one more thing? Board members, you all got a memo for direct deposit, so your stipends can go directly into your account. So if you guys could get those back to me as soon as you can, that would be great, because we're going to start payroll direct deposit on May 1st, barring any things. So thank you.
All right. All right, and then we move on to did anybody have any other questions for the Finance Committee report? No. All right, then we will move on to the Legislative Committee report, which I am the head of. At this point, we're moving along. with our bill, our SB 415. The language has been agreed to, basically the language that Jim had put forward in our proposed bill, and that has been agreed to by Senator Melendez, and it is now with the Legislative Council. And at this point, Legislative Council has been sitting in on it for, I don't know, 3 weeks at least. And we are just simply waiting for the council to give back our proposed legislation so that we can see the final language, because from there on out, we now need to reach out to all the various players that we need to kind of work with, i.e. supervise some of the other members of the legislature up in Sacramento. So it is a wait and see. We're hoping in the next 2 weeks, we're waiting for that final language. So that's basically all I can report at this point. Did you want to add anything to that, Jim?
No, that's right on the money.
Okie dokie. Well, then we will move into the much awaited general manager's report, please.
Oh, money, FEMA, Cal OES. I don't know if you've noticed, but we haven't seen any money coming our way from our friends up at Cal OES. That generated a meeting, which took us a while to set up, but it occurred last Friday. It involved Dave and Ron Stein, who've been processing all this. Everything's electronic now. There's no more paper with them. And so for us old guys, it makes it a little tricky. But Ron's young, so he's been putting that together. And basically, we've completed everything. They really worked us over pretty hard 3-4 months ago, and Teresa and Ron were working full time. They wanted it, we submitted it up and down, and they wanted it sideways. We assumed we got them happy, but never heard anything. So that became somewhat concerning. So we had a big Zoom meeting with all their people and our people. And it began with the bad news. And the bad news is that FEMA has said they're not sending any more cash for closeouts of projects after 2018. If they want to clean up all the 2018 projects, and that's that the bad fire year where Paradise burned down and all, or anything related to COVID, there's money. The others, there's not money, but they're putting them on hold. So what we were told is that our projects, we've received $500,000. I'm just rounding the numbers. And there's another, Teresa's at 1.7 or somewhere in there. Am I close?
1.7, 1.8.
Okay, that we've submitted, but we didn't hear back. So the folks said, well, you're not going to get that funded until the end of the fiscal year. And I said, well, wait a minute, that's not so bad. That's only 2 months from now. And they says, oh, no. We're talking fiscal year 20, in a year from now. What? So it got kind of ugly. And so we said, well, first you got to tell us, we can't wait for a year because you change things and people might change, whatever. Oh, no, we're happy. We're about half, 3/4 of the way through processing you out. Everything looks good. We just had to put it in a cubby hole for a while. So how do we make our bills, guys? And they said, well, FEMA came up with something new. And that, it's not new, but basically you can ask for an advance of 90% of your obligated amount, which Teresa is at about 1.2 million. And in a month or so, you'll have the cash. And I said, well, okay, so now that somehow must impact the amount we're asking for. And they said, oh, no. It's just FEMA doesn't have enough staff to deal with all these at one time. So they're willing to give everybody in advance just to get them happy. So that's what we're doing. So we should have, so Teresa, what's our estimate when we finish figuring all this out? About 1.2 million coming in, and what, how long did?
I'd say 4 to 6 weeks, and I'm in the process of completing that paperwork. It's a very simple worksheet on every job. You just have to send in, do your completion dates and send it in, and within 4 to 6 weeks, we should have the money. So I'm working on that right now. So it'll get turned in hopefully Monday at the very latest. And I think we'll be good. We'll see some cash start coming in here. And that's just not hearsay. That was confirmed that, yes, I have the official form to go ahead and get 90% of your obligated funds for every project, even Sandia Creek and Via Vaquero too. So I'm going to be asking it for, all the way across the board. We're going to get some money in here finally. So then they'll go through the process a year from now, closing everything out and any overruns and stuff. Then that money will start coming in as well. But right now, at least we're going to get the bulk of the funds in.
Great.
So we now have an answer to the question that we've been wondering about for the last month or two. So just a couple info items. The MSR with LAFCO, we submitted everything that they requested, and it looks like they're going to do a report, and that may be it. So we must have jumped through the right hoops. But I've been reporting on that because that can get rather extended, and looks like everything is moving along good. So also just it's not really a CSD issue, but I just want everybody to hear it at the same time. On this neighbors, I don't know if who looks at that or not, but there seems to be in the last week, in particularly the last few days, there's a zoning issue coming up. It's for hearing before the Planning Commission, Riverside County, 9:30 a.m. next Wednesday, a week from today. It's 2 10-acre lots. One is like 9, but side by side, off Buena Vista, north of the area we've been talking about tonight. It's zoned as most of the lots in Duluth are zoned RR, residential rural, and they're asking to downzone their properties to A1, agriculture 1. And they supposedly are going into a 10 to 20 year agriculture, like a growing contract with someone. And this will allow the two property owners to reduce down their property tax. Anyway, I've never done zoning up here, so I'm not sure, but the A1 is on parcels around these particular properties, but it's creating quite a stir on this neighbors. And I've talked to the planner twice, and the first call is this some trick to get marijuana or something? And he assured me no, that wouldn't work. And in that zone, you could put a trailer park or some not so nice uses, but those things would take a later CUP, and then they'd have to assess their property. So the planner and I can't figure out what the controversy is about. But anyway, I'm just pointing it out. You're going to hear about it. It seems to be spreading around that there's some issues on the zoning up there. So anyway, those are the issues of the day. Any questions or anything?
Well, I just wanted to add to the zoning issue. One of the things we think we know is that these two properties are not within any POAs, which means that they're not subject to any of the rules as far as density or whatever. They're only answerable to the county. And so that is just kind of what got my antenna up a little bit more, because otherwise, if the county was to zone a property that's within a POA agricultural rather than rural residential, we still have those properties subject to the PEO, CCNRs. These property look like they're not, and it just makes me a little bit worried that they would have the ability to do mobile homes or worker farm worker buildings or something that just kind of would detract from.
They could do that now. There's mobile homes out in Duluth now on those out of POAs.
Yeah, if they're outside of POAs, there's nothing we can do it. But if they're just rural residential, if I remember correctly, rural residential zoning means that you can't have more than a main residence and perhaps ancillary buildings as well, but certainly nothing like a mobile home development or anything like that. So yes, we cannot stop, or we don't have this it's outside of our purview to establish what can or cannot be going on properties. All we do is road maintenance and sheriff, etc. But it could, if something like that were to happen, it could impact the roads. So we could take a position on that from that standpoint. Okay, so just FYI. I think. Go ahead.
I'm finished. That was the end of my report.
Okay. As far as I can tell, Jim, I don't think you really had any position as far as our reserves are going. Like somebody mentioned, anytime we do major projects, we're really going out of the money for a year, perhaps two. And while we're having a fairly good emergency fund, should something really extraordinary come up, and it seems to me extraordinary is becoming pretty ordinary and happens to the tune of every year or every other year, we could run through some serious money very quickly. So the question to the board would be, should we consider, perhaps have the finance committee take a look at the numbers that we have in front of us, and then perhaps suggest to the board what would be a prudent amount of emergency set aside money before we start considering any other projects at this point. So I'd like to hear anybody else. What do you think about tabling any other projects under item J at this point until next month's meeting?
I think that's fine. I think that's a reasonable approach to it. Let's understand what the numbers are.
Right.
We make a decision. I mean, that only makes sense. We can look at what we have in reserves. We can look at historically what the weather has done and the emergencies have cost us, and then we come up with some intermediate number. It doesn't have to be 1.4 million total. It could be another 300,000 or whatever. So the finance committee look at it, and we'll come back to you with some ideas.
That sounds great. And then we can shoot that then over to the engineering committee and saying, perhaps there'll be X amount of funds available, and what is the best use of that, based on the three options that you gave us this time. So something like that, we can bring that to next month's meeting.
Okay.
If agreeable. Okay.
Didn't we vote to approve option 2?
Yes, we did. That's done. But we also talked about addition, moving on with other projects, as you mentioned. Okay. Why not 1.4? But it's like, let's be prudent about the funds that we have, and what that could entail, any other emergencies sprung up in the next couple of years. So with that, I think we can move along to the next item, and that would be legal counsel matters. So Mr. Simmons, if
Thank
you
you.
would please give us your update.
Thank you, President Byers. I have a very light report tonight. I was just going to report that just today, you probably heard, Riverside County moved into the red tier from the purple tier on these COVID shutdowns. And that means that the restaurants and movie theaters can go to 25%. Museums, zoos, and aquariums can go up to 25%. Indoors, gyms can go up to 10%, and retail and shopping malls can go up to 50%, which is somewhat of a surprise to me, because if you've been into a Costco on a weekend lately, it looks like it's at 100% already. The also intermediate and high schools can return to in-person instruction, and then we need to stay in this red tier for a minimum of 3 weeks before the state will consider moving us to the next tier, which is called the orange tier.
Oh, yeah, orange.
So
What
I was
comes
in
after
a,
orange? What comes after orange, Counselor?
I don't know,
It's like,
yellow or something.
okay.
Yeah.
So that's basically it. I know I was in a county last weekend that was already in the red tier, and the waits at restaurants were over an hour. So there's quite a pent-up demand for people going back into indoor restaurants to eat. So that's probably going to be with us for a while.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think this, does anybody have anything else that they want to ask of Mr. Simmons at this point? I think, all right. I believe then this concludes our meeting, and we are adjourned. Thank you very much for all your input and all your follow through, everyone. Thank you so
Thank you.
much, and have a lovely day.
Good night.
Good night.